Hi, it's Kristen and I'm going to share with you some of my bookish goals for 2023. So I've got like 3 parts to my goals. One is about book buying, one is about reading, and one is about writing, because I write sometimes. So let's start with part 1, my book buying. I went for quite a long time a few years ago not buying any books, really. I'd buy maybe 1 or 2 here and there, but I wouldn't buy books in like bulk like I do now. And I've slipped into the habit of buying, when I buy books, buying like 4+ at a time. And my reading does not reflect the rate at which I buy books. So, my goal is to try and stop buying so many books in general. But also within that, the books I do buy, I want to prioritise buying books that will complete series that I'm potentially already like own the first book of, or that I've owned multiple of and I need to finish. So for an example, I own and have read the first book in the Poppy War trilogy, but I don't own the other 2, even though I read the Poppy War a couple of years ago now, I think. A year and a half, 2 years ago. So of all the books I've bought since I read that book, I've not bought the following 2 books, even though I really want to complete the series. I've bought other things and then read other things, and so I've just never finished that series. So my goal is, for stuff like that, is to not buy new books that are standalones or start other series, but to prioritise, I mean I can do those things as well, but to prioritise buying books that will complete series that I've already started. Because I think that makes sense. If I'm buying books anyway, why would I not choose to buy books that would complete series, especially if it's a series that's already finished? You know, the Poppy War trilogy is completed. I could buy books 2 and 3, read those, and then be done with that series, rather than just saying eventually I'll read it, or buying books in series that I've, read the first one of, but there are like 5 more and the last one's not even out. So yeah, I want to prioritise the books that I buy being part of series that will complete the series for me. I want to buy more books from charity shops. So towards the end of last year, my friend and I, and then one time my sister and I, went charity shopping a few times, which we hadn't done in ages, but we made like a whole day of it. Instead of going to town or to the mall or anything like that, we sort of picked an area of the city and had a whole day out. We got loads of walking done, so that was nice as well, a lot of exercise, but we hit like I think 9 or so charity shops, and in several of those charity shops I found really great finds. I found the original Graceling trilogy in the new editions that I'd been eyeing up for a while. I found a couple of other like standalone books that I'd been interested in but wasn't sure if I ever wanted to pay full price, but I couldn't find them in my library, so if I wanted to read them I would have had to buy them full price, and I found them in really good condition in charity shops. Obviously the quality of the books might vary, you know, creases and spines, dog ears and stuff, but the ones I found have actually been really good condition. And I think the most I've ever paid for a book in a charity shop last year was like £1.50 for a really good condition hardback, and most of the other books cost between, like, I think it was like 75p was the cheapest I got a book for, and yeah, £1.50 the most expensive, and most of them fell around the £1 mark. Yeah, so for what I would have paid to get one book full price, I ended up getting like 6 books from a charity shop for the same cost. So I want to just do that more often, you know, just spend a day every couple of months maybe where I just go charity shopping and I see what books they have to offer, especially if it's a book that I know I'm not going to get round to immediately. If it's one that I would quite like to buy, but I know that if I did buy it full price or online or anything like that, that I wouldn't immediately read it. And if it's one that's like generally very popular, that's on a lot of bestsellers lists, it's like, you know, Women's Prize, Booker Prize, a lot of those books do tend to end up in charity shops at some point. But I've also found more like niche things in charity shops. So just for the sake of my bank account, I think charity shop book buying is a savvier way to do things for me. And also that money is then going to charity. I know, you know, if you just bought one book in a charity shop, it might only be £1, but that's £1 that's going to charity instead of money that would go into potentially like a big corporation. Following on from that, if it's a book that I don't think would ever really be in a charity shop, I can't see it being in a charity shop, maybe it's like an indie publisher, I just think maybe there's less printings of that book, so it's less likely it would end up in a charity shop. I want to buy more from independent publishers, small bookshops, not big Waterstones. I'm sure I will still shop at Waterstones occasionally, and I do like Waterstones, but yeah, to try and buy more from small bookshops and independent bookshops and things like that, and not from Amazon. No. Lastly, in terms of book buying, this kind of goes along with my going into my reading goals. I want to read more books in the year than I acquire, because I'm pretty sure last year, potentially, the ratio of books I hauled and the amount of books I read were probably pretty even, which doesn't make me feel great. And I have a lot of unread books on my physical TBR, and more than the amount that I typically read in a year. I think I have like probably 2 years worth of books at the rate I would normally read. I have books to last me about 2 years worth of reading. So if I acquire more books, I'm just always adding and never catching up. So whatever happens, I want to read more books than I buy. So if I read 40 books this year, I don't want to be buying 40 plus books, because that reading then won't have actually made a dent in my physical TBR. So yeah, read more books than I acquire. So then in terms of my reading goals, I want to read 40 books. 40 books was my goal last year. Every year I feel like I up it just by a couple of books. last year my goal was 40 and I read 39. And it bugged me. And I had a few friends suggest that I up my reading goal to like 42, 45. And I was just sort of like, but why? If I didn't manage to hit that goal last year, why would I up my goal? Because there were points last year where I do think, you know, I know that I went 1 to 2 weeks without reading anything. And if I had just read a short book in that time, I would have hit my goal. I do know that. But I do also anticipate potentially being busier this year, just in my life and with life goals I have. I anticipate being busier and potentially not having as much free time as I currently do, or I did last year. So I thought I'm just going to stick with 40 because to me, I never hit that goal, so I still need to hit that goal. But I'm also not going to get as stressed out about it as I did last year. So 40 seems like a nice round number as well. So 40 is my goal for this year. Within that, I am sort of doing that 12 in 12 challenge where you get 12 friends to pick 12 books and you read them in 12 months. I don't have 12 friends to hand that I could randomly message and say, hey, give me a book. So, and I didn't want to risk anyone just like randomly telling me a book that wasn't on my TBR. I was like, I'm not going to add to this by making it any book that I would also then need to purchase or anything. And I didn't want to be sending friends pictures of my bookshelf. I thought that would get complicated. So I just, at Christmas time, when my sister came round, she and her friend, who is currently living with her, they both came round along with my brother, and the two of them looked at my physical TBR shelf and they, between them, picked 12 books that they wanted me to get to. Some of the choices were because my sister looked at the book and was like, I know that you've had that for ages, so get to it. And some of them were because my sister and her friend were like, we want to read this and you can read it and then lend it to us, or read it and at least tell us what it's like and if we want to buy it ourselves. So yeah, they came up with a list of 12 books that they want me to read within the year. I should really have this to hand, shouldn't I? I think I made a note of it on my phone, so let me read out those 12 books actually, because that's more interesting, I feel, than just going, I'm reading 12 books and not telling you. So the books they picked out were The Priory of the Orange Tree, because my sister knew that I planned to read it last year and then never got around to it, so she popped it on there, and her friend had heard good things. Ready Player One, because it's been on my TBR for ages, and her friend had heard good things, but my sister sort of knows that it's one I'm hesitant about because I think I might not like it, but I think she was encouraging me to read it, even if it then means unhauling it, because that will also clear space on my shelves. Then there was Inkheart, because my sister's friend read that when she was younger and really enjoyed it, and she said she has the rest of the series if I read it and enjoyed it and wanted to continue. Then I've got Pool Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl. My sister just thought that sounded really interesting, and so she thought I should get to it. That's one of the books I bought in charity shop last year. Legendborn, they both thought sounded interesting and wanted me to get to. Allegiant. Allegiant I have owned for years. A little while after it came out, I finally found a copy that matched my other copies of Divergent and Insurgent. Bought it, then heard how the whole series ended, got spoiled, and that really put me off. But I've owned it for so long, I'm sort of determined to read it because I don't want to get rid of it without ever having read it, even if I don't like it. So my sister put it on my list, even though it probably means I'll have to reread Divergent and Insurgent. But again, in an almost like, read it, say that you've read it, it's finally off your TBR, and then like, even if you unhaul it. Then I've got the 5th season. This is on here because my sister's friend had heard good things, wanted to know what I thought, but also my sister knew that this was a pick for my book club a couple of years ago now that I never got around to reading, because I think that was a month I ended up in hospital, so I never got around to reading it because like shit happened, and I've never quite got the momentum to pick it up, so my sister was like, just do it this year. Then there's a book called Heatwave, which my sister decided to pick because she thought, as a kindness after picking Allegiant, she picked Heatwave because it's the shortest book on my TBR. It's very, very short, so that's why she picked that one. There's a book called Places in the Darkness, which is like a sci-fi mystery. My sister loves things set in space, so she wanted me to read it so she could read it. Then we've got The Witch's Heart, which they thought sounded cool. It's like a Norse mythology book, but my sister knew that it was a gift from a friend last year. My friend bought it for me for my birthday, which is very kind of her, and I've not got around to reading it yet, so my sister was like, make sure you do, and then you can tell your friend, this is what I thought of it, and thank you. And then we've got The Guilty Feminist non-fiction book. Again, I've owned it for a couple of years now. I really love the Guilty Feminist podcast, and I bought this book a few years ago and haven't read it, and haven't read much non-fiction in the past couple of years, so my sister again was like, get to it. And finally I've got The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, again because they both want to hear what it's like and if they should read it, and they've heard good things, as have I, and they're always, I think several of these books on this list have queer characters and about queer people, and they will always encourage that, and I will take them up on it. So that is my 12 in 12 challenge. I'll write those books below as well with the author's name. And lastly, my goal is to finish some series. So this ties into what I was saying before about buying books to complete series. I want to finish some series. So if I buy, the 2 sequels in the Poppy War series, I can read that series and finish that series. If I read Divergent or reread Divergent and Insurgent and read Allegiant, I'll have finished that series. Not counting any like novellas or whatever spin-offs, but the core books in the series, I will have finished that series. I own a couple of romance books by Tessa Dare, which I know you can read individually, but they do technically fit in with series. I own some already. If I buy the continuation of them, then I can finish, or at least catch up with those romance series. So yeah, finishing series is a priority this year. And lastly, the last section of this goals video, I want to finish writing my book. I have written for the past several years. I've participated in NaNoWriMo. Didn't do NaNoWriMo last year or the year before, but the year before that, the first like proper year of all the lockdowns and such. Whilst in lockdown, I'd never completed NaNoWriMo before. I'd got like half the word count or a quarter of the word count, a third of the word count, but in 2020 I won NaNoWriMo by writing 50,000 words of a novel. And in 2021, after that, I occasionally went back to that novel, added bits on, edited it, had writing sessions with friends of mine and got a bit further into it, or filled some gaps where I needed to. And then last year I think I opened the Word doc to do some writing, and I just never did. I don't think I wrote anything for my book last year. And I'm still so proud of completing that NaNoWriMo, and I really liked my story, that I want to finish it. I want to finish it this year, because otherwise, what a waste of 50,000 words. Yeah, I think I ended up writing like 51,000 and something during NaNoWriMo, and since then have added on another couple of thousand and edited things. And I want to make that worth something. I want to say that even if it's a rough first complete draft, I want to have a complete draft of my story. Yeah, so that's a goal I have this year. I want to finish my own book. Whatever rough first draft it is, I want to finish it. Yeah, I did do some writing last year, but it was my friends and I started a little writing group, and we decided to work on a project together. So I was writing, but I wasn't writing my book. So I want to get back to that. I want to go back, I want to revisit the characters, see if I have new ideas, see if I hate everything. I'm kind of tentative. I'm kind of nervous to go back to it, because I do sort of worry that I will reread it and be like, what the hell was I thinking? But I want to finish having written a book. Yes, those are all my goals, my big goals anyway, for the year. So just buy less books generally, or read more books than I acquire. Prioritise buying books that will complete series. Buy more books from charity shops. Complete some series in terms of reading them. Read 40 books in the year and read that list of 12 books within that 40 that my sister and her friends suggested, and then finish writing my own book. Those are all my goals for the year. I guess I will make another video at the end of the year, looking back, or at the beginning of next year, looking back and seeing if I achieved any of these goals. Let me know your goals, if you've got any reading goals or writing goals or book buying, goals / limits. Let me know below. Thank you for watching. I'm excited about content this year that I have planned, and I hope you will continue to watch.